sure I'm on. Yep, I'm on.
Just turn on our microphones, just for fun.
You on? Are ya? Hello, and welcome back to another Bible reading and discussion. As some people have been calling it the Ed and Jesse Show.
You know, that's what it is.
Our Greenback fans.
Everybody needs a fan base.
Everybody needs a fan base, no matter how big or how small. Right? But we are in John chapter 9, and Jesus has been doing a lot of healings. Mm-hmm. People have been hearing a lot about healings, but John has been kind of focusing on a couple
He
healings.
likes to draw some at it. I believe he's tagging this one on to chapter 5.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about the spiritual blindness. There's going to be a spiritual aspect to this healing that
signs, as it were,
that goes beyond the healing itself.
Mm-hmm.
So we're ready to jump right in, and Edwin, start us off.
Okay then. As he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, it's an interesting question here, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents? They would be born blind, which is interesting. How could he have sinned? But that's another story. They believed that you kind of got what you deserved in life. Job has to deal with that a lot, and it goes to a fault.
Well, and I like, the wisdom. If you read the book of Proverbs, you kind of get that idea.
That proverbial wisdom.
Right, you get the proverbial, if you do good, good things happen. You do bad, bad things happen. So obviously, when bad things happen, someone did something bad.
It's like when raise up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it, which is subject to another translation, by the way. But let's assume that's the translation. A lot of parents have beaten themselves up over that. Proverbs wisdom is general wisdom. Things generally go good if you do good. Things generally go bad if you do bad. But there's lots of exceptions.
I like to study the wisdom literature together. You got Proverbs, who's kind of the ideal. Ecclesiastes comes along and says, I've never seen any of that work. I've seen it.
And in its own way, under the sun, that's exactly right.
And he goes, I'm seeing the good, go through trial. I'm seeing what's the point of it all, really? And then Job comes along and is kind of, to me, is the example. Job starts off with the proverbial, things are going well for him, but life doesn't always go well.
And it goes south.
God doesn't always bless you because you've been good. God doesn't always take things away with you because you've been bad.
No.
And at the end, it's all about he repented before God. He feared the Lord, kept his commandments, and God did eventually bless him again.
And the Bible covers, well, for instance, it'll cover things like, well, what about these bad guys who prosper? And there's all kinds of things about that. And the key is, well, when they die, it's really not that good of a thing.
Yeah.
And if you didn't get a lot of good stuff, you get to be like Lazarus, and you get good stuff at the end.
And you get to learn what true prospering is.
That's it. Spiritual versus material.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Jesus answered, it was neither that this man sinned nor his parents, but it was so that the works of God might be displayed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me as long as it is day. Night is coming when no man can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. So this was one of those things that God was able to take advantage of for his glory. And there are all kinds of things like that. Pharaoh and his obstinance and just all kinds of things that it hasn't always gone well, but God can take and work into it and do something with it.
Yeah, and and there's a way to read this. The Greek is a little weird here as well. That where it says, "But that the works of God might be displayed in him." That could just read, "The works of God might be displayed in him," without even the "but" there. There's a way to. I was trying to remember who brought that up. I think it was maybe Pate in his commentary on John. But anyway, the point is, it's not that God struck this dude blind.
Yeah, no.
So that he could then heal him.
Or something.
It's kind of like the people who sell the poison and the cure. God's not doing that. But that Jesus, his mission while he was here on this earth was to be the light of the world. It's kind of similar to the fasting question.
This man's in the darkness of blindness.
Yeah, it's kind of the question of the fasting question. Why do your disciples not fast? Well, the bridegroom is here. When I leave, but
different.
In this moment, Jesus, one of his missions was to be the light of the world, and to go back to Luke chapter 4, he was to bring sight to the blind. That was one of the messianic, promises.
Yeah, those things that were prophesied. And again, all of them deal with temporal things, but they have obviously a larger connection to the spiritual equivalence.
Yeah, because he's not the only person who's ever going to be born blind. We got people today born blind.
And stay blind until they die.
Yeah.
But they can find life.
And that's really the point of this chapter, is whether this man was ever recovered from his physical blindness. What was he seeing in Jesus that opened up his spiritual eyes?
And we're going to run into some people here who see,
but don't.
But they don't. When he had said this, he spat on the ground. He made clay of the spittle and applied the clay to his eyes and said to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which translated means sent. So he went away and washed and came back seeing. Therefore, the neighbors and those who previously saw him as a beggar were saying, "Is not this the one who used to sit and beg?" Others were saying, "This is he." Still others were saying, "No, but he's like him." And he kept saying, "I am the one." So they were saying to him, "How then were your eyes open?" And he answered, "This man who is called Jesus made clay, anointed my eyes, and said to me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' So I went away, washed, received sight. And I said to him, 'Where is he?' He said, 'I don't know.'" So we've got the man healed in a kind of an unusual way to us. And people are all, "What's going on here?"
Yeah, and here's where we're going to see the difference between the John 5 man who was healed, who really...
He's a jerk.
he wasn't all that grateful, and when he could sell Jesus out, he could. And here the blind man's going, "Guys," and he's going to say it again, "I don't know what you want from me." Right? I don't know what you want from me.
All I know is what happened. Okay?
I know what happened. I was the man. I'm not lying. You know who I am. I know who I am. My parents are going to know who I am. And what do you want from me? I don't know who did it, but I was blind and now I see.
That's it. And that's really what the Pharisees should have taken note of.
Yeah.
This man was blind, and now he sees.
Who cares if it's Sabbath? Who cares what day it was? A man was healed. Miraculous.
They brought to the Pharisees the man who was formerly blind. Oh, you got to love this kind of foolishness.
Yeah.
Now, it was a Sabbath on that day when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. Now, if you go back to chapter 5, that kind of looked like a violation. Pack up your bed and walk. This, a lot less so. So increasingly we're seeing it's not so much the Sabbath, it's just finding something against Jesus.
I love how John words it. Jesus made the clay, and they're gonna.
Yeah,
he did work. He made clay. He made something.
That's work.
He spit in mud.
Because that's exactly what God meant with the Sabbath law, of course.
And that's really why I think Jesus chose to do it this way. Why did he spit in clay? Couldn't he have just waved his hand? Couldn't he have just spoke words? Absolutely, he could have. But
at times he just sticks it to him. It's just foolishness.
There is a time to be provocative for provocative's sake. Now, not to be mean, but to sometimes prove a point. You hope that people see the point and change, right? But they don't always see it.
They don't always do that. Then the Pharisees also were asking him again how I received his sight. And he said to them, "He applied clay to my eyes, and I washed and I see." I love this guy. Therefore, some of the Pharisees were saying, "This man is not from God, because he does not keep the Sabbath." But others were saying, "How can a man who is a sinner perform such signs?" And there was a division among them, and we keep seeing this kind of happening in response to Jesus. So they said to the blind man again, "What do you say about him, since he opened your eyes?" And he said, "He's a prophet." The establishment of the Jews then did not believe it of him that he had been blind and had received his sight, until they called his parents, the very one who had received his sight, and they questioned them, saying, "Is this your son, who you say was born blind, and how does he now see?" And his parents answered them and said, "We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind." But actually, your verse, "But now he sees."
Yeah. Well, and this idea of people keep perceiving Jesus as a prophet or a rabbi or a teacher.
Somebody connected with God.
Right. I mean, and that's the whole point. Jesus is doing signs that obviously prove, whether you believe he's the Son of God, that right now can be debated in a sense. Because until the resurrection, the resurrection is the sign that says, because a lot of these miracles, Elijah did stuff like this. Elijah brought people back from the dead. Elijah healed, people's blindness. Moses did great works. We have all these, but you can't say he's not of God at this point.
You got to say, Nicodemus nailed it in John chapter 3 when he says, "We know that you're sent from God, or you couldn't do these things."
Yeah, and even this man who was born blind. And so if you were born blind, You probably weren't welcome in the temple. You probably weren't getting Torah read to you. You probably weren't, you weren't.
Off the side begging.
But yet, this man who has no formal teaching can understand he's got to be a prophet, guys.
He's more educated than the educated.
Yes.
David Farr used to talk about people who were overlearned and confused.
Yeah, too educated to their detriment. All right, I think it's my turn.
It is.
But how, so here's the parents. But how he now sees we do not know, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him, he is of age, he will speak for himself. So that goes back to this idea of being a witness, right? Why bring a man, this man, from all we get, he's an adult, or at least close to adulthood.
He can answer for himself.
He can answer for himself. He's no longer under his parents, but they're just, they need to find something.
Yeah, they can't believe that this actually happened because it's such a special kind of miracle that this makes it even harder to dismiss him.
Yeah. So his parents said these things because they feared the Jews. For the Jews had already agreed that if anyone should confess Jesus to be Christ, he is to be put out of the synagogue. So there is some real consequences here. All right, these are, sometimes we forget that. In our Western society, we forget about the consequences of what many of our brothers and sisters in Christ throughout the ages had to suffer if they claimed Christ.
We get ostracized or somebody yells at us on Facebook, and man, this is just horrible. We don't know horrible.
But being put out of the synagogue during that time was life-changing.
Oh, it was the worst social thing that could happen to you.
Yeah. So they were scared. So therefore his parents said, he's of age. For the second time they called the man who had been blind and said to him, give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner. And so they're using a good thing, like giving glory to God is what we all ought to be doing. Right. But through lying and deception, no.
Well, look at where they are with this. It shows what sin does to you and rejecting God does to your heart. So making a man see who's been blind since he was born, well, that's obviously a sinful thing. How perverted is that?
And how could that not give glory to God? He answered and says, whether he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I know, that though I was blind, now I see. Right? There's a simple fact. You can argue amongst yourself why he did it, what he did it for, all these kinds of things, but I just know what happened to me.
Bottom line.
All right? And so he answered them, I have told you already, and would you not listen? Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciple? I mean,
this guy, you gotta love him.
You want to talk about a slam? This dude, for being born blind, he's got some wit. You ever know someone who loses a sense and their other senses become more keen?
His
wit has taken over. And they reviled him, saying, you are his disciple. We are disciples of Moses.
Oh, man.
We know that God has spoken to Moses, but for this man, we do not know where he comes from. And why do they know Moses was spoken to? One, look at the things Moses did. Right? Even his own people Aaron and Miriam had to realize that this is from God. Right?
And Jesus has surpassed Moses.
Absolutely. The man answered, said, why, this is an amazing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. Once again, the proof is in the pudding, people. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but and sometimes we go too far with that.
Yeah, we do go too far with that. That was not an inspired thing by Jesus. This was the blind man. Well, he's saying something that is truthful. And what he means here is God's not in association with and working with and complimentary toward someone who is a sinner.
This is in the context of miracles. Is God going to heal a blind man who's working for Satan? Right?
Is he going to validate somebody's satanic ministry by letting him work miracles?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No. And this is not to say that God does not hear the prayer of sinners when they are trying to come to him. So let's just kind
of... Cornelius, his prayers are going up as a memorial to God before he has the gospel preached to him and he responds to it.
He's a God-fearing man. Nebuchadnezzar, even in a sense.
Yes.
Remember when he's out in the wilderness...
living like an animal.
It is said that until he concedes and prays to God and repents from his pride, that God would not restore his fortunes. And so he does.
It would seem he had to pray.
All right, so now that we answered that.
Yes.
Right? Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. They answered him. I mean, he's more astute, right, than these people are.
Yes.
They answered him, "You were born in utter sin."
It's just like kids, arguing with each other and saying stupid stuff. These are grown men.
You're like, no, you're a poopy pants.
Yeah, that's it. Yes.
You're
that's
a bigger
exactly
poopy
what
pants.
it is. Talk about acting like children. And these are the leaders of the religion of Israel on a practical basis.
If you don't think there's humor in the Bible,
Here you go.
you're
right
too
now.
serious when
This
you're
is
reading it. You were in utter sin, and you would teach us? They cast him out. Jesus heard that they had cast him out. Having found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered, "And who is he, sir, that I may believe in him?" Right? Because Son of Man has
a
title of
messianic term.
Messianic term, and with the Messiah, born, those who were blind would be made to see, right? Those who are poor would be made rich. Those who were in chains would be set free. All those kinds of things. So, if him being a Jew, he would at least known of some of these things. And so he's saying, okay, these things are starting to be fulfilled. Who is he so I can believe in him?
This is interesting to me that when Jesus is preaching to the Jews, nobody ever asks, well, what are you talking about when he's talking about the Bible?
Yeah.
If Christians could only be in the same situation.
Well, and like, imagine the Jews going, hey, yeah, we want to know about the Son of Man. Tell us who he is. They don't ask those questions. They try to trip him up. We just got to get rid of him. It's like the woman at the well, We're waiting for the Messiah. She knew something.
This miracle that's never been seen before, you can kind of fake some miracles.
Yeah.
You don't fake this.
No, especially a man born blind.
Yeah, let's really truly in front of some witnesses, credible witnesses, see somebody heal somebody with cerebral palsy today. It doesn't happen.
No. Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and it is he who is speaking to you." He said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshiped him. So this is our first time of worship in John. Someone's falling down to worship Jesus.
And he doesn't say, no, I'm just a man.
He doesn't say no. And, that's the only true response. Like, when we talk about worship, and we have to force people to be there,
Yeah.
we are outside of the purview of really...
Can you really worship if you're made to be there?
Yeah, if you're feeling guilted to be there.
Yeah.
This man it was a natural response
thing.
of the love and the grace and the mercy of God. And that's how it ought to be. Jesus said, "For judgment I came into this world, that those who do not see may see, and those who see may become blind." Some of the Pharisees near him heard these things and said to him, "Are we also blind?" So this is happening.
They're picking up on
think
this.
about this. Jesus, it seems as if Jesus is kind of sitting outside the courtroom, waiting and allowing all this to go on. And then when he finds this man who comes out from him, purposely talks to him loud enough where others
They're
can hear.
overhearing it. You talking to me?
But they ought to be being put to shame with how this man is responding to the words of life.
Much, much better than they are.
And so they're getting it. Once again, they're not dummies.
They understand what he's talking about.
Last night you were talking about aha moments.
Yes.
Not every aha moments leads someone to serve God. Some aha moments make people mad and angry at
Get
God.
you to dig your heels in
Yeah.
even more.
Yeah. So some of the Pharisees near him heard these things and said, "Are we also blind?" Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would have no guilt. But now that you say we see, your guilt remains." Really what Jesus is looking for an acknowledgement of is the fact that you are not able to see without God.
And if
You
you're
are
willing
blind.
to take a next step and continue with it, even though it's a little blurry to you, okay, we can deal with that. But when you say, I got this, I know what this is.
But when you have believed something your whole life, you have taught something your whole life, it does take a huge humble pie.
We're talking pride, aren't we?
Right, we're talking pride. And to say, you know what, that's why I'm very careful of say what I believe now is what I'll always believe. Because I'm not so prideful to think that I know everything that I ought to know.
Right.
If we're not constantly learning and growing and understanding, it's not to say that we can't be confident in what we believe.
No, and if we're right, there's nothing going to come along to show that we're wrong.
Yeah, actually Jesus is going to say later in Matthew 23, and later in his ministry, that, hey, the things that they were teaching, when they were teaching from the law of Moses, you listen to these guys. They didn't have everything wrong, right? But they had a pride issue. They had what they thought about God and what they thought about themselves.
Loving the crowd.
Yeah, so that messed them up. So who's the real blind one here? And
be
interestingly enough, take this question all the way back from the question at the beginning, who sinned, them or their parents? when it comes to the Pharisees and where they got to, what sins that were perpetuating in their culture as the Pharisees taught the next generation, that they are themselves
They're blind because they've sinned.
blind people have been leading the blind for how long? And sin is what's keeping them back. So the sin they thought that was keeping this man back is actually really turned around on themselves.
Paradox.
It's like Paul in Romans 2. Are you teachers of the law? Do you not teach yourself? So, all right, John chapter 9. It's a good chapter to mull over and see what are things in my life that are keeping me from seeing the whole truth.
There are none so blind as those who cannot see, I have heard said, and that is the truth.
Yep. So if you like these videos, please share them with your friends. Always give us the heart, care, comment, share.
Yeah, we don't profess to be the know-it-alls about Jesus in the Bible, but we do know how to read text and kind of talk about what it is, and it's about Jesus. So if you can get some people to listen in, they're going to hear some things about Jesus, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah, and where you want to start is hopefully you're having natural conversations with your friends and family and coworkers and go, hey, I got this thing that I listen to. It's, it's not too long each day. Some are a little longer than others, but hey, maybe you'd like to listen to this. And if they'd ever want to comment, if they would ever want to
Have a conversation.
ask a comment
or
question,
talk to us.
Yeah.
Ask us.
send them our way. We love you. God bless.
Yes, we do. Bye-bye.